Hello, my name is Robin Yergubian. I'm a counselor in the Transfer Center at Santa Rosa Junior College. Today I'm going to walk you through the University of California application. Keep in mind that the application for fall of 2020 has been updated. It actually has a new URL, and you're going to want to make sure you hit the correct one so you're not pulled to the old application. So the new URL is apply.universityofcalifornia.edu, and it'll bring you to this home page here. The first thing you'll do is create an account. Make sure to write down your email and password as per their requirements. It will get complicated and difficult to remember. Once you've created your new account, you'll be pulled to an application menu. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to show you what was my spring application. And you'll see that one of the first places you reach is a guide to the application. This is showing you all of the pieces. And so you can always review what you need to complete over in the right-hand side here in this box. And keep in mind too that there's information about various pieces. So if you get a little stuck, you can hit the help menu, and it does change given the page you're on. So the first section we're going to go over is about you. This is fairly straightforward. Here is sort of like a printout of everything you've worked on within that section, and then this is the section itself if you want to go in and add or edit throughout. And you can see you can jump around to different places, and you can always save and come back to this application. So they're going to ask for your name and birthday. They're going to ask for basic contact information. Then they're going to ask some more personal information about citizenship and residency, and also demographics. So this does not affect your chances of admission. That's important to consider because they are asking about how you represent yourself. And you can answer these open and honestly. Same thing with your background about languages you speak, and perhaps some things that apply to your living situation, if you're part of the military, if you were in foster care, income, how many people are within your household, and a lot of this information helps guide the UC into determining who they're serving and how they can better serve students. They're going to ask a question also about the level of education for your parents. If you're independent or dependent, it doesn't matter. It's just providing information to the university. And then every section has a little review at the bottom, and you can do a sweep of what you have input to make sure that it's accurate before moving on to the next section. For campuses and majors, you're going to see this first piece is giving you an idea of what the community principles are for UCs and just having you acknowledge that you value and agree with those principles as someone hoping to enter into that community of practice. Term and level is a place for you to review how you are applying. This is critical. You are a transfer applicant. That's going to trigger the correct application. And junior level transfer. These two, sophomore and senior level transfer, are rare, and you would be speaking with a counselor about those. You would have already had that conversation. Vast majority of our students are junior level transfer, so we're going to move forward with that as a demonstration. Then you get to pick your campuses. So as you go through, you'll select where you're applying, and then it will auto-populate with how much it's going to cost. There is a fee waiver button at the end to check based on the information you provided back in About You regarding your financial information. That will help them determine whether or not you do receive a free application. If you do qualify, you should get 4 campuses for free. So I'm going to save and continue. And then it's going to ask, what's your major? So for UC Merced, let's go anthropology. And then you can also select an alternate major. In this case, I'm going to go with philosophy. And move on. Again, a little sweep of everything I just submitted to make sure it's accurate before moving on to what is the meatier section. This is academic history. For academic history, it's really important, that's what this introduction is all about, that you report every single college you've attended, whether or not it had transferable coursework, whether or not you passed the coursework, whether or not you liked the coursework. You must report every college course you've ever attended in these sections. If you do have a TAP account, That's that transfer admission planner. And if you did apply to TAG, the transfer admission guarantee, you use this to do that, so you will have an account. You can input your account information, say import, and it will pull up all your courses and grades within the application itself, and that should be accurate. Saves you a lot of time to input classes and grades over again. I do not have a TAP account set up right now, so I'm going to continue and do this all manually. Here for high school attended, I'm going to put where I went to high school. If you don't see your high school as an option, you can select to input it. How that works is you go to type. It's not going to come up because the school perhaps just is not in their database for whatever reason. You can see mine's a little off the grid. So you can manually enter your school name and all of the information. Next section requires you to enter any college you've attended. In this example, I've put San Rosa Junior College. You let them know the dates you've attended, as well as which of those terms within the dates you've attended, and if you're receiving any kind of degree. That information goes in there, and if you did attend SRJC while you were still in high school, you're going to keep the date range accurate to when you were attending the JC. So if you hadn't yet graduated in August 2016, maybe this was like your senior year, you'd still put that you started here, because that is when the first class was taken. And if I wanted to add another college, like maybe I attended College of Marin for one semester, I would add that as well. I've finished adding colleges. We'll bring you to the next section where you put in your coursework. And again, you're putting every class you've taken, and you're going to have it match your transcript with one small exception. If you did academic renewal on a course, meaning you got a D or an F, but completed some paperwork with admissions and records, or perhaps with a counselor to lift that grade out of the GPA, it's still on your transcript, but the grade is no longer factored in, and you can put it as AR rather than the D or F that's showing up within brackets on your transcript. You'll know if you got AR because on your transcript at SRJC there will be a tiny code of 40 next to that grade. If you see that, put AR rather than the D or F. Everything else will go in just as the grades appear on your transcript. So that includes a withdraw. If I withdrew from a class, I put that WI in there to indicate that. If you repeated a course, and here I have an example, it looks like I got an F in Bio 10, and then I went on to get an A in Bio 10 the next semester. I'm going to put it in that section, and they will see that it's a repeat. A couple of extra things here. So you'll see that in some cases, classes do not come up. So I'm going to go ahead and edit. I'm going to say that in fall of 2016, I actually took a Counseling 270 class. But you're going to see that it does not auto-populate, and the reason is because it's not transferable. But you're still putting all coursework, transferable or not, within your academic history. So then I just manually type it in. It's Counseling 270. Intro to College. It's half a unit, and in this situation it's either a pass or a no pass. In this case I passed. Save and continue, and it's going to go in there where it belongs because every course needs to be listed. If you took Speech 1A when it was Speech 1A, you will see that class appear. I'll show you what I mean. Under Speech, it will show up, Speech 1A. However, this course title changed over the last couple of years, and it's now called COM 1. But the auto-population feature of this app is not caught up to that. So I had to manually enter in COM 1. So you might see that with a few classes like Counseling 6, the numbering has changed, and it's not going to auto-populate. The takeaway on this piece is make sure it matches your transcript. It should look identical to your transcript, with the exception of AR as the grade, if that is applicable. Once I have all my classes from all my schools, I can move on, and they're going to ask some questions about minimum requirements to the UC. They're going to ask if I have hit my entry-level writing requirements. So an example might be English 1A and English 5. Those are examples, and you'd see those on an ed plan with a counselor has probably helped you with. They want to know if I completed my IGETC. You do not have to complete your IGETC for the majority of programs. A select few do require it to be completed, but that's something you would have worked out with your counselor. You'd be aware. So just because they're asking if you have IGETC completed does not necessarily mean it needs to be. Then they're going to ask about some other pieces here, such as English Comp. So they're asking me, did you complete your 2 English courses? And in my example, I actually never took English 1A. I took an AP English Lang and Composition exam. I got credit for it, and I bypassed English 1A. So I am going to put in at the status of my second course, because I don't have English 1A, I don't have that second course from the JC, my AP credit, and this is how I'm inputting it. It's also asking how I got math, and I will confirm that, yep, this is the transfer level math, because these are entry-level requirements to the UC system no matter where you're applying or what you're applying for, the 2 English and the math. So they're just making sure that you are prepared. I save and continue. It's asking me if I've ever been on academic probation. If I have, I would keep answering some of these prompts and let them know a little bit more. If I followed a UC transfer pathway, I'd indicate it here. This is not critical for admission. Same with this piece as well. And then this part's really important. This is an opportunity for you to talk a little bit about something on your transcript that needs extra explanation. You'll see that with UC, many campuses really do care about your academic record and how that looked in the larger scope of your life. So for example, and this really might apply to many people, this is a line that you can tweak to make your own. But we all experienced in fall of 2017 wildfires that had class cancellations for 2 weeks. That's a pretty significant amount of time, especially in college. And so that might be something that would be helpful for them to know about that particular semester, so that if you didn't do particularly well, they might understand that. And remember that F I got in bio? I might explain what happened there. Turns out I got sick, and I didn't make it to a lot of classes, and by dropping and trying again, I was able to remedy that grade. So any extra context information should go here for your academic record. And then we do that review again. This is the one you really want to review carefully because it's your academic record. This is very important for admission. Once we move over to test scores, you can put in any AP credit. If you took IB, this is mainly for students whose first language is not English. And then you can review this section. That one's pretty straightforward. Under activities and awards, you're going to list your top 20 activities and awards that give, again, more context into your life. UC cares more than just classes and grades. So for example, I was part of the economics club. I do not need these to be written in full sentences. It's more like a resume with action verbs and numbers and just really good information. I was the treasurer. I want you to know right away that I had some leadership. Here are some of the things I did. Look at how much I managed. You know, saying I managed some participants doesn't always tell me how much impact that could have had. It could be 2 people versus 20. I'm going to want to add a little bit more to give them a better idea of what the activity included. And if it's an activity like perhaps somewhere you worked in like a bio lab or something like that, you can also do a little blurb on what the lab was focused on, so they again get context for the activity before you tell them more about what you did specifically in the activity. I'm putting some work experience. So this is an example of what the organization looked like. I'm giving lots of detail. I co-organized this specific event, and here's exactly what I did within that event. And then you're going to get as close as you possibly can to time. I've only listed 2, but you're going to keep going and list more. Anything that you feel that can be relevant to the application and you as a person, not even just a student, is really important. So don't feel like just because you weren't paid it's not relevant. You can even put family responsibilities in here to just show that, look, I spend my time doing these other pieces outside of school which impact school, either for the better or maybe it's something that shows a barrier you're getting through if you're caretaking for somebody for a long period of time throughout the week. That shows that maybe you can't have other activities because of that. So say all of that within your application so they understand, again, the context in which you are earning your grades. And if you have leadership of any kind, even if it's in your family or within your church community, let's say as an example, highlight that. Once we move past that, there is a section for scholarships, and you just start clicking things that are relevant to you throughout these groupings. And they get pretty specific. Once you move through that, it's now down to the essays. Let me save and continue. And the essays will give you a few tips. So this is important, things to look at. And then you'll see the actual places for you to answer. Do not start your essays within this document. Please use a Google Doc or a Word doc so that you don't feel confined to this little box, and you can work on it in just a different kind of brainstorming flow. Then copy and paste within this. And you can see I've written one word. It is counting. So you have 350 per essay. And I'm not going to review much of this because we have an entirely different workshop solely dedicated to the personal insight questions. So please check that one out for more information. Keep in mind, though, there is a hidden, well, it's not all that hidden, but it's at the end of the application. It can be easily overlooked. Do not overlook this box. So at the very end, under personal insight is additional comments. You have 550 words. That's a lot of space for you to tell us anything else that fits nowhere else within the application. There's a little blurb here to help you out. So this can provide additional context. Maybe it's something that doesn't belong in some of those other essay spots, and it doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be written like an essay. They want you to just include little bits of pieces of information that, again, give them a good understanding of who you are as a person and then, of course, as a student. So it's a place for you to clear things up, similar to that extra box in academic history, but maybe it's not just academic. And you can start putting some of that information here. Kind of a random example might be, you want them to know that you've moved 4 times this year. And perhaps it just didn't belong in an essay, you had other things to say, but you want them to know what you've been handling as you've moved through coursework and what that's entailed for you. It just gives them an idea into any kind of unusual personal or family circumstances. So let this box help you out to provide even more information, but it should not be repetitive. If it's already been included, you're good. Then we can review and submit. It can see that I didn't do a couple of things, and will bring me back to those spots. And you'll go through the submission process. One thing to keep in mind is you can always check back over your status, make sure that it was submitted, and download a PDF copy for your records. And from there, you will get emails from each campus prompting maybe to set up a portal or additional information that is needed. Additionally, they will ask for an update in January to show the correct grades and classes for, well, grades from fall and classes for spring. So make sure to keep an eye on your to-do list as you move forward in the year. And best of luck. Remember to visit us in Transfer Center if you need any extra support.